Welcome back to the Deep Dive Learner. Today, we're looking at a global system designed to catch criminals moving millions of dollars in, well, literal milliseconds.
Right, which is an incredible technical feat on its own.
Oh, absolutely. But the craziest part to me isn't even the criminals. It's the fact that if a bank tries to stop them the wrong way, the entire global economy it would grind to a halt within hours.
Yeah, that tension right there, that is the defining problem of modern finance.
Right.
We are examining a stack of source materials today detailing a platform called ComplyAdvantage.
Yeah, and they do some fascinating stuff.
They really do. They specialize in AI-driven fraud and anti-money laundering, which you'll usually hear abbreviated as AML risk detection.
AML, right.
And the core challenge these documents highlight isn't simply, catching bad actors. Anyone can catch a bad actor if they just freeze every single transaction and interrogate every single customer.
Right, which obviously isn't an option in the real world. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
The mission for our deep dive today is to understand how modern, high-performance enterprises actually fight financial crime on a global scale, but without destroying their own businesses in the process.
Exactly. Because the traditional approach to this was essentially an impossible global game of whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole, yeah. Where the board basically covers the entire planet.
Right. And the moles constantly change their disguises, and they move across borders instantly.
And every time a bank misses one of those moles, the financial and regulatory penalties can be totally devastating.
Oh, massive fines. Loss of banking charters. It's a nightmare. But again, the flip side is just as dangerous,
Oh, so?
Well, if catching those criminals creates massive friction in the system, like if it takes 3 weeks to approve a perfectly legal transaction for a regular business legitimate commerce, just stops dead.
Yeah, if you've ever had your debit card locked while trying to buy, coffee on vacation, you've been a victim of that friction.
Exactly. You were a false positive.
Right. Now, multiply that annoyance by a multinational corporation trying to run payroll for, 10,000 employees across 5 different countries. The stakes are just astronomically higher.
They really are. So to manage that delicate balance, to catch the sophisticated bad actors without stopping normal business organizations, can't rely on just putting a heavy lock on the front door.
Right. That's not enough anymore.
No, it's not. They require a comprehensive, interconnected net. And the source materials refer to the core architecture of the solution as the ComplyAdvantage mesh.
The mesh. I like that visual. So let's look at how this mesh is actually built. It's a software-as-a-service risk intelligence platform, and it's designed to cover the entire customer lifecycle.
From the very beginning to the end.
Right. The documentation breaks this down into several distinct applications. You have customer screening for individuals, company screening for corporate entities.
Which are huge tasks on their own.
Totally. And then you have ongoing monitoring, transaction monitoring, and payment screening.
And the integration between those distinct applications is where the actual power lies, because financial crime is rarely a single isolated event.
It's a process.
Exactly. It is a continuous process.
The distinction between the screening side and the monitoring side is really fascinating to me.
How do you mean?
Well, I look at customer and company screening like a bouncer at a velvet rope outside an exclusive club.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Right. Like they check your ID, they make sure you aren't on a banned list, and they decide if you get to come inside. It is a vital step.
A vital step, yeah, but ultimately a static step.
Right.
It only assesses the risk of that entity at the exact moment they try to enter the financial system.
Which means someone could be perfectly clean when they walk through the door.
Exactly.
But ongoing monitoring and transaction monitoring, that is the internal security system watching you while you're actually inside the club.
Right, looking at your behavior.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You might walk in looking like a model citizen, but if an hour later you're trying to pry open the cash register, the system alerts security because your behavior and therefore your risk status has suddenly changed.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the specific technology powering that internal security is really what separates a modern platform from legacy systems.
Yeah, the old way just doesn't cut it.
Not at all. The sources specifically highlight the use of machine learning algorithms, ID clustering, and graph analysis. And, these aren't just tech buzzwords.
Right.
They represent a fundamental shift in how we analyze data today.
Graph analysis is a concept we see popping up more and more in these deep dives.
It's everywhere now.
Because a traditional database just looks at rows and columns, right? Like a list of account holders and their balances.
Just a flat spreadsheet, essentially.
Yeah. But if they're using graph analysis, it's not just looking at the individual account in isolation. It's like playing 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but for shell companies.
That is an incredibly accurate way to visualize it. I mean, financial crime is almost never committed by a lone wolf operating out of a single identifiable bank account.
Right, they're smarter than that.
Way smarter. Criminals layer their transactions. They move money from account A to company B to offshore trust C.
Just creating a massive maze.
Exactly. They are actively trying to obscure the origin of the funds by creating this chaotic trail.
So a traditional system, just looking at one transaction at a time, totally misses the forest for the trees.
Completely.
It sees account A send money to company B and thinks, okay, looks fine. It doesn't know what happens next.
Right. Graph analysis, however, maps the nodes and the edges.
Nodes and edges. Break that down for us.
Yes. The nodes are the entities, so the people, the companies, the accounts.
Okay.
And the edges are the relationships between them. It mathematically reconstructs the entire network. So it might reveal that 20 seemingly independent companies all share the exact same obscure IP address.
So that's a red flag.
Huge red flag. Or that they all use the same registered agent in Panama.
So it's mapping the invisible connections.
Yeah.
And ID clustering plays right into that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Taking seemingly disparate data points, like a device ID used to log in, a phone number, maybe a physical address, and clustering them together to say, hey, these 5 different accounts are actually being controlled by the exact same entity.
It brings the invisible network right into the light. But, you know, a structural analysis tool like a graph database still requires high-quality inputs.
Right, which actually exposes a massive potential flaw in the whole thing.
How so?
Well, you can have the most sophisticated internal monitoring system in the world, mapping all the nodes and edges perfectly. But what if the person hasn't committed a financial crime yet?
Ah, right.
Say they just got arrested for cartel activity yesterday, or, I don't know, they were just appointed to a government position in a highly corrupt region. Your internal transaction monitor wouldn't catch that, because the suspicious activity hasn't happened inside your bank yet. The system needs to know what a bad actor looks like out in the real world.
Exactly. It requires external proprietary risk intelligence to fuel those internal algorithms. And the ComplyAdvantage platform pulls from several massive global databases to get this.
Okay, what kind of databases?
The most fundamental of these are sanctions and watchlists. Governments and international bodies publish lists of individuals and entities that institutions are legally prohibited from doing business with.
Okay, that part is pretty straightforward. Don't do business with sanctioned people.
All right. But the second database mentioned in the sources is where things get a bit more complicated.
Oh?
Yeah, it's PEP's Politically Exposed Persons and RCAs, which stands for Relatives and Close Associates.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. And honestly, this is where I have to push back a little bit on behalf of the listener.
Let's hear it.
Because I totally understand monitoring a foreign official or a politician, right? That makes sense. But relatives and close associates. To the average person, putting someone on a risk watch list just because they are related to a politician sounds dangerously close to, well, guilt by association.
I can see why it looks that way.
Right. Like if my brother becomes a foreign diplomat, does my bank suddenly treat me like a criminal?
That raises a really important question, and it highlights a critical distinction in compliance.
Okay.
Being placed on a PP or RCA list is not an accusation of a crime. It is not a blacklist.
It's not.
No, it is simply a flag for heightened risk.
So it's an indicator of vulnerability, not necessarily guilt.
Precisely. Consider the actual mechanics of corruption. If an embezzling official wants to launder stolen state funds, they are fully aware that their personal bank accounts are under intense scrutiny.
Right. They know they're being watched.
Exactly. They cannot move the money themselves. Historically, the most common conduits for illicit funds are the accounts of family members or trusted business partners.
Ah. So the relatives are used as proxies.
Exactly.
Sometimes willingly, but potentially even unknowingly, I'd imagine.
Yes, often unknowingly. The platform isn't telling the bank that the diplomat's brother is guilty of anything. It is signaling that the brother is in a position where his accounts could be leveraged to move illicit funds.
Makes sense.
Therefore, the institution just needs to apply enhanced due diligence to his transactions. It is a strictly risk-based approach, not a punitive one.
Okay, I get it now. It's a yellow caution light, not a red stoplight.
That's a perfect way to put it. And that framework of risk indicators applies to the third major intelligence feed they use, adverse media.
Adverse media. Meaning the news.
Yes, the continuous global monitoring of negative news.
Which seems like an impossibly huge task. I mean, bad news doesn't just happen in English, and it doesn't just happen during regular business hours.
No, it doesn't, and the scale of the data is staggering. The source materials explain that they utilize natural language processing, or NLP, to monitor this adverse media across multiple languages globally.
Let's break down how that NLP actually functions, because it's not just doing a basic keyword search for the word fraud, is it?
No, no. A simple keyword search would be disastrously inefficient. You get a million false hits.
Right.
NLP uses transformer models to actually parse the syntax and extract the semantic meaning of unstructured text.
So it's actually reading it.
In a way, yes. It performs entity extraction, identifying exactly who the article is about, and sentiment analysis.
Oh, wow. So it understands the context.
Yeah.
It knows the difference between a news article saying a CEO was shooting a round of golf versus an article saying a CEO was shooting a rival.
Exactly. That context is everything.
Yeah.
Furthermore, it can deduplicate information.
Deduplicate.
Yeah. Think about it. If a major scandal breaks, 1,000 different news outlets might syndicate the exact same story.
Oh, sure. Like an AP Wire story.
Right. The NLP system understands that these are not 1,000 separate risk events. It realizes it is a single event being reported multiple times, and it consolidates that intelligence into a single, coherent alert for the compliance team.
That's incredibly smart. But even with deduplication, you are still combining global sanctions lists, millions of daily transactions across the graph network, and multilingual news feeds operating 24/7.
It's a lot of data.
It's an absolute avalanche of data. If every single yellow caution light creates a manual alert, the human compliance officers are going to drown in the noise.
And you have just identified the defining crisis of modern compliance operations, the false positive problem.
Yeah, I look at a high false positive rate, like a kitchen smoke alarm, that is just way too sensitive.
Oh, yeah, I know those.
Right, it goes off every single time you make toast.
Yeah.
At first, you jump up and check the kitchen, but after the 20th time it screams at you just for making a bagel, human psychology takes over.
You tune it out.
You start ignoring it. Or worse, you actually take the batteries out. And that is incredibly dangerous because eventually there might be an actual house fire and you won't react.
Right. And in the context of a financial institution, taking the batteries out or ignoring an alert means a sophisticated money laundering operation slips through.
Which brings us back to those massive fines.
Exactly. The bank gets hit with a multi-million-dollar regulatory fine or loses its charter entirely.
So how does the mesh architecture actually solve the burnt toast problem?
This is where we see the artificial intelligence doing the really heavy lifting. The sources detail the deployment of agentic workflows.
Agentic workflows.
Yes. The claim is that they use agentic AI to autonomously resolve up to 85% of routine compliance alerts.
85%.
85%.
Okay, let's clarify what makes an AI agentic. Because when we say agentic, we don't just mean a basic algorithm that flags a keyword and stops.
Oh, it's far beyond that.
Right. Agentic means the AI acts like a junior investigator. It chains tasks together independently.
Yes, step by step.
It sees a flag on an account, decides on its own to go query a corporate registry, pulls that new data, cross-references it with a translated news article, and then synthesizes a conclusion. It's actually taking independent actions to resolve a workflow.
Exactly. It observes, orients, decides, and acts. By handling the routine, low-level investigative work, it acts as a highly intelligent filter. We see the real-world business impact of this in the Monix case study included in the materials.
The Monix case study. Monix is a fascinating example because they are a foreign exchange and international payment specialist.
Yes, they deal with a lot of volume.
Processing cross-border payments means dealing with a massive volume of transactions across dozens of different regulatory environments simultaneously.
And the documentation notes that the flexibility of ComplyAdvantage's screening and monitoring significantly reduced Monix's false positives.
Which they desperately needed.
Absolutely. If Monix had relied on a static, rigid rules engine, expanding into new international markets would have just buried their compliance team in false alarms. The AI streamlined their alert management so effectively that it actually became an enabler for business growth.
That's a huge shift. It transitions compliance from being purely defensive cost center into a mechanism that allows the business to scale faster. You can onboard more customers in more countries because your human team isn't bogged down clearing false alarms all day.
They're focused on the real threats.
But there's a very specific phrase used in the source material regarding this agentic AI that caught my eye. It says the AI resolves these alerts autonomously while maintaining total regulatory defensibility.
Ah. What's fascinating here is that regulatory defensibility is arguably the most important technical requirement in the entire document.
Why is that?
Yeah,
Because when I see a phrase like that, my mind immediately goes to government audits.
you're right on the money.
In a highly regulated environment, an AI cannot operate as a mysterious black box. You can't just have data go in, a decision come out, and nobody knows how the machine arrived at that conclusion.
Absolutely not.
Right. If the SEC or FINRA comes in and asks, hey, why did you approve this multi-million-dollar wire transfer to this offshore entity? You cannot just say, well, the computer told us it was fine.
The regulators would shut you down immediately. It is not enough for the agentic AI to autonomously clear 85% of alerts. It must explicitly prove its reasoning.
It actually has to show its math.
It has to generate a clear, logical, and transparent audit trail. Every piece of data it queried, every cross-reference it made, and the specific logical steps it took to determine an alert was a false positive. All of that must be documented in natural language.
That's incredible.
It is essentially writing the defense briefs for its own decision in real time. That transparency is the only way autonomous AI can be legally and safely deployed in the financial sector.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Because hearing about a powerful autonomous AI that maps invisible networks, tracks political associations, analyzes global media, and generates its own investigative reports.
It sounds like sci-fi.
It does, and honestly, it might sound a little alarming. It feels like a massive surveillance apparatus.
It is an incredibly potent aggregation of data, which is why understanding the strict legal guardrails around its use is paramount.
Right. Because if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the source material, past all the platform features and the AI capabilities, there are some very explicit legal disclaimers.
Yes, the fine print matters here.
People hear terms like global database and risk screening, and they immediately panic about getting denied an apartment or seeing their credit score tank because the AI misread an article about them.
I can definitively clarify that concern right now. The source material is legally bound to state its boundaries. ComplyAdvantage explicitly declares that it is not a consumer reporting agency.
Okay, that's good.
The services and the intelligence they provide do not constitute a consumer report under the Federal Fair Credit Reporting Act, the FCRA.
The FCRA. For the listener, that's the federal law governing credit bureaus like Equifax or Experian. It exists to ensure accuracy and fairness in evaluating you for credit, housing, or employment.
Exactly. The threshold for a financial crime risk flag is entirely different from the threshold for credit unworthiness.
Right, apples and oranges.
Because of that, the data provided by this platform legally cannot be used by an institution to establish a consumer's eligibility for credit, insurance, employment, or government benefits.
And debt collection.
It cannot be used to make debt collection decisions either.
Okay, so there is a massive, impenetrable legal firewall there.
A very thick one, yes.
It's like they have built this incredibly powerful, over-the-horizon radar system. But legally, that radar is strictly ring-fenced. It is only allowed to scan the skies for incoming ballistic missiles, things like money laundering, terrorist financing, and sanctions evasion.
Right.
It is strictly forbidden from using that same radar to monitor commercial flights or civilian traffic.
That's exactly it. The tools are built for a singular, high-stakes purpose. Their application is confined by law entirely to risk and compliance management.
Well, we have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, navigating the hidden machinery that keeps the financial world turning.
It's a complex world.
It really is. We started with the concept of the mesh, exploring how high-performance enterprises move beyond the front door bouncer to build interconnected nets of ongoing monitoring.
We examined how graph analysis reconstructs the hidden networks of illicit finance by mapping nodes and edges, and how intelligence feeds use natural language processing to make sense of global adverse media.
And we saw how agentic AI functions as a virtual investigator, chaining tasks together to clear away the burnt toast false positives.
Which allows businesses to scale while maintaining that crucial, transparent audit trail for the regulators.
And importantly, we established the legal silos that keep this technology focused on financial crime rather than our personal credit scores.
It is a remarkable synthesis of intelligence and automation, but, this deep dive raises an important question, one that builds on everything we've discussed today, and I think it's worth leaving with you, the listener, to mull over.
I always appreciate a look over the horizon. What is the final thought?
Consider the trajectory of the technology we've just unpacked. If agentic AI is already capable of autonomously and defensibly resolving 85% of routine compliance alerts today, what happens as these models inevitably become even more advanced over the next few years?
Well, they will be able to handle increasingly complex edge case investigations, right?
Precisely. We are currently looking at a system designed to counter human criminals. But criminals are early adopters.
Always are.
As illicit networks increasingly adopt agentic AI themselves, using it to generate flawlessly synthesized identities or to instantly restructure their transaction graphs across thousands of shell companies to evade detection.
Oh, wow.
Will the future of fighting financial crime eventually evolve into a pure AI versus AI arms race?
Man, that completely redefines the game we talked about at the beginning.
A scenario where human criminals and human compliance officers are entirely removed from the front lines. It simply becomes algorithms doing battle in the hidden background of the global financial system, moving at the speed of light, probing and defending networks autonomously.
The ultimate high-stakes game of whack-a-mole,
Oh,
where the moles and the mallets are both artificial intelligence.
exact.
That is a staggering thought to keep in mind the next time you swipe your card and your payment is approved in half a second. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, learner, and we will catch you on the next one.